Hi there, welcome to Recap City. Today, I am going to share a 2016 post-apocalyptic zombie movie titled The Girl with All the Gifts. Warning, spoilers ahead. Enjoy watching. Melanie, our young protagonist, is lying in her bed as the lights in the cell comes on. She rises and begins getting ready for school. She warmly welcomes the two soldiers when they enter, but their main concern is securing her to the wheelchair. They wheel her outside and place her in a line with other kids her age. Melanie and the others are seated in rows assigned by numbers in a classroom. Melanie asks Miss Justineau, their teacher, to tell them a story and suggests she read them a myth so that it will count as history. The instructor reluctantly agrees and reads them the Pandora's box tale. Melanie is led back to her cell after class, but the two tense soldiers won't say goodnight to her. Later, she receives her dinner. They serve her a plate full of worms. She then falls asleep as she eats. Melanie receives a visit from Dr. Caldwell the next day. The doctor offers the child a new riddle after seeing that she has already solved one she had given her, explaining that it is a logic puzzle. She requests that she address the Schrodinger's cat puzzle. When Melanie is unable to respond, the doctor notes something about her conduct and reads it aloud to her, referring to her as a subject. Lastly, when Melanie is asked for a number, she responds with 13. She and the other kids are later picked up by the troops to go back to school. Melanie notices that cell number 13 hasn't been unlocked as she is being wheeled by the numbered cells. When she enters the classroom, the same spot with the same number is still vacant. For that specific class, the teacher chooses to assign students a writing task. The kids are concerned that they won't have any stories to share. When the teacher calls for someone to read aloud what they wrote, Melanie raises her hand right away because she is the only one writing a longer one in her notebook. In her story, she presents herself as the rescuer and the hero. The teacher is moved by Melanie's story and approaches her wanting to touch her. Sergeant Parks suddenly bursts inside the classroom and yells that touching the kids is prohibited. He wants to remind Justineau of the reasons for this. He approaches a child and rolls up his sleeve, bringing his arm near him. The kid sniffs him and opens its mouth to bite him. As the other kids imitate this action. Following the class, Sergeant Park enters Melanie's cell. As the soldiers prepare to remove her shackles, the girl irritates him, so he leaves her bound on the chair. When Justineau visits Melanie and sees how she has been left inside, she enters the cell and begins removing the cuffs. As she smells the teacher's scent, she begins turning like the other kids. Melanie tells the instructor to leave before she fully changes. Dr. Caldwell returns to see her later that evening. As they talk, the doctor asks the girl for another number. Melanie responds with number 4, which is the number of her cell. The next morning, Sergeant Parks arrives to pick up Melanie. He pulls her out of the cell and rolls her into an elevator. When they're out of the building, gunshots can be heard all around. Soldiers can be seen running and firing at the military complex's barrier. Melanie is confused by what she sees as Parks wheels her to a different area of the compound and leads her into a lab where Dr. Caldwell is waiting. The doctor asks her about Schrodinger's cat, but when she doesn't get the answer that she wants, she says that Melanie is similar to the cat in the box, which is both living and dead. She is immediately knocked unconscious as a second doctor administers a sedative into her arm. They move her to a slab and restrain her, but she quickly wakes up. Justineau runs inside to stop the doctor from cutting up Melanie. After a few other promising words, she convinces the teacher to put her weapon down and immediately pepper sprays her, incapacitating her so the soldiers can arrest her. She explains to her that she isn't just cutting Melanie up but is using her as a source for a vaccine. Justineau is taken away. An alarm starts blaring. Caldwell tells the other doctor to drop the shutters, but as she does that, a zombie breaks through the glass, biting her relentlessly. Caldwell kills the zombies, cutting her own hand in the process. The other doctor starts turning completely, but she escapes the lab just in time. Melanie is left alone in the lab with a zombie, though it doesn't touch her. The girl grabs a scalpel and frees herself from the restraints. Melanie walks outside to find complete chaos in the complex. Zombies running around attacking soldiers as they try to shoot them down. Suddenly, she sees Justineau getting beat up by the soldiers. Enraged, she runs toward them, attacks and bites them, eventually killing them both before passing out. Justineau wakes to find Melanie beside her, picks her up and gets her inside a military vehicle. The zombies completely take the complex over as the vehicle is seen leaving, followed by a herd. Sometime later it stops in the middle of nowhere as Parks and Kieran realize that Melanie is in the back of the vehicle with them. Justino lets the girl out as Caldwell screams that doing that is not her decision to make. Melanie runs just a little way off from the vehicle and stops, clearly seeing the outside for the first time. The others stay by the vehicle trying to radio to other outposts to no avail. As the doctor tells them to retrieve her test subject, Parks and Kieran check the vehicle for supplies but find no water or food, just a mask used to retrieve zombies. The sergeant makes a plan to go south to Beacon, assuming everyone back at the complex is dead except the zombie children. They put Melanie on the gunner's seat of the vehicle strapped in and masked and make their way to a river to get water. When they arrive there, a few zombies find them, prompting a shootout with the soldiers. One of the soldiers gets bitten in the fight, so Parks waits a moment to see if he'll turn, and when the process starts, he shoots him. Closing the doors of the vehicle, he realizes that Justino has brought Melanie in with them, which makes him terribly nervous. The girl asked about the zombies and Caldwell explains that they were people infected with a fungus transmitted through biting. When Parks go to start the vehicle, he realizes that it's busted and that they would have to go on foot through London, a quicker but more dangerous route. Parks and Kieran survey the perimeter which they would have to cross. It's filled with zombies. They inform the others that there is no alternative but to pass through the zombies and find shelter and supplies once they're inside the city. The group walks between a mass of sleeping zombies, careful not to wake them. Suddenly Parks stops when they reach a dead end. A zombie mother pushes a baby cart toward them and Caldwell goes up to her. Making her stop, she sees the baby move in the cart and checks it, only to find a rat inside. She yelps, waking the zombie mother first and then the others. The group manages to escape and moves through the zombie-filled streets of the city, eventually finding an abandoned hospital and went inside. Parks finds an opening to another floor and they all climb up where they will be much safer. Parks, Justino, and Kieran immediately go on patrol while Caldwell and Melanie stay back. As they're left alone, the girl asks where she came from. The doctor explains that her and others like her were found on a maternity ward in a hospital. They were the children of mothers who got infected with the fungus while they were still pregnant. So, the infection got in their system through the placenta. Caldwell tells her that they were different than the other zombies, able to think and react almost like real people. Later, Justino returns, giving Melanie new clothes she found for her and apologizing that she didn't find any food. That night Park and Justino talk about Melanie and he tells her that the girl loves her. Meanwhile Kieran is guarding the girl and she bonds with him as well. The next morning, they notice that more zombies have gathered in front of the hospital. They have no way out, but Melanie comes up with an idea. Since the zombies won't attack her, she convinces them to let her go outside and find a way to move the zombies away from the building. Caldwell doesn't like the plan, but without an alternative plan the others agree. Before she leaves, Melanie asks to put on her new clothes. She goes outside and passes the zombies without trouble. Suddenly, she sees a cat, hunts it down and eats it raw. Later, she goes into a house and finds a little dog. When she comes back, she uses it as a decoy for the zombies, getting them all away from the hospital. Parks puts the mask and the handcuffs back on and they continue the journey through the abandoned city headed for Beacon. On their way they see something strange. The fungus growing out of the bodies of the zombies, something the doctor thinks is the next stage in the life cycle of the fungus. She then tells Melanie that in her case the fungus works more as a symbiote than a parasite likes in the others. Going deeper in the city they find a huge mass of bodies growing into a massive fungus that Caldwell suspects is the reason why no walking zombies are around. When enough of them come together they transform into the mature stage of the fungus that can pollinate larger areas if not the entire world. On their way they suddenly find a mobile laboratory. They get inside the vehicle and start looking traffic. Park tries the engine first and then the radio, no response. Kieran leaves on a supply run and Melanie is getting uneasy, like she's about to turn. She tells them that she needs to eat too and they let her out to hunt. She finds her food fast and tears right through it. When she's done eating, she hears a strange sound and follows it to a bookstore. She peeps through and sees a group of children communicating with grunts. Melanie understands that they are just like her when suddenly one of them comes inside and tells the others that he has smelled something, and they all follow him out back. At the mobile lab, Caldwell is getting sicker and informs Justino that she has sepsis. Then she starts talking about Melanie again and how she needs her brain and spine to make the vaccine, much to Justino's displeasure. Suddenly, Melanie returns and tells them about the children she saw, convinced that they will hunt for Kieran. He's seen walking down a street and suddenly finding an unopened can on the ground and then another one until he sees a store and crawls under the shutter to get in. Once inside he starts eating and looking through dirty magazines. A little girl appears behind him, startling him. She lures him between the rafters of the store and momentarily more children appear. When their leader joins them, they all attack Kieran together. Meanwhile, Melanie is leading Parks and Justino to him. She can smell him like the other kids did. They finally arrive at the store, went inside, and find Kieran half-eaten. Melanie realizes that the children didn't just set a trap for him but for them as well. They go outside and see that she was right. The group of kids is waiting for them. Melanie challenges the leader and fights with him. When she kills him to prove to the others that she is the strongest, she's able to protect Parks and Justino and lead them back to safety. They arrive at the lab to see that the door is open. When they walk inside, Caldwell sedates them with some kind of gas. She pulls Melanie toward the slab to perform her procedure but stops because she's in terrible pain from her hand. She turns around for a moment to fix it, but when she turns back around, Melanie is already conscious and alert. They talk and she tries to convince the girl to give herself up so that she can save everyone with her vaccine. Melanie almost agrees but asks one last question. She wants to know if the doctor thinks she's alive or just mimicking human behavior. Caldwell responds with the former, then the girl asks why we should die to save you. The doctor follows Melanie as she leaves the lab and heads out. Caldwell, who is after Melanie and has no weapon or defense, is instantly surrounded by the zombie kids. Meanwhile, Melanie visits the large fungus they previously found. She attempts to ignite the spores by setting them on fire, but Parks chases her and gets infected. That wasn't what Melanie had in mind. He begs her to shoot him as he begins to change so that he doesn't end up like them. Later, Justino wakes up in the lab, safe from the spores, and realizes what has happened with Melanie waiting for her outside the lab. In the next scene, Melanie wakes Justino up and some time has clearly passed. She pulls out a whiteboard and begins teaching the zombie kids on the opposite side of the lab glass. Now that Melanie is their leader, they all go to Miss Justino's classes together. Help us grow this channel. Subscribe for more videos every day, turn on notifications and leave a like and a comment. Thank you for watching. See you at the next one.